Da 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 da. Welcome to Disenfranchised. I'm Karen Bulinski Mathison with the Naked Grief, and I am here for the Disenfranchised podcast of episode 21, the one with the fake Monica. So this episode has kind of three parts. There's three characters that are going through some stuff. Monica's credit card gets stolen, and when she tracks down the thief, the fake Monica, she ends up befriending her instead of turning her in. Fake Monica pulls her into a bolder, freer version of herself by crashing parties, auditioning for plays, saying yes to things that Monica wouldn't. And when fake Monica's then arrested towards the end of the episode, Monica feels the loss twice. First, the violation of being stolen from, and then the grief of losing the version of herself that she had tasted and never knew existed until the identity theft happened. Meanwhile, Ross finds out that Marcel has reached his sexual maturity and may need to be rehomed. And after scrambling to find options, Marcel is accepted to the San Diego Zoo, and Ross has to say goodbye. And Joey struggles with finding a new stage name and spirals into ridiculous options that kind of backfire. So, the things that are introduced in this episode is Monica loses a possible version of herself, Ross loses a role and attachment, and Joey bumps into the grief of not feeling enough as he is. So, the possible self grief, which is a form of disenfranchised grief. What's being lost is not a person, it's a version of yourself. Monica grieves the best parts that she briefly experienced: the spontaneity, the confidence, the social boldness, and the permission to be messy and alive. Now, remember, Monica is a very strict, follow by the rules, OCD, everything needs a place. You don't wait to pay your bills. You don't wait to do anything. You always put stuff back where it belongs. And then she finds that she can be a little less and still be more. So why this is grief? It's the emotional crash after realizing I could have been her, but now she's gone. It's also the grief of time. How long have I been living smaller than I had to? Now, Monica really doesn't stay with any of these new discoveries, but learning that she can is a huge epiphany. Because if you know that you can sing, maybe you don't become a singer like for a career, but knowing that you can do it is half of it, right? So now that she knows that she can just show up and take a tap class and knows what that looks like and feels like, even if she never does it again, she knows that she can. If you are afraid to get on a pair of skis and then finally do it, even if you don't succeed at it, knowing that you did it is half of it. You may never do it again, but you were bold enough to put yourself out there. The coaching moments for Monica, because of the fact that she does some avoidance and outsourcing because she borrows the fake Monica's identity instead of building her own. She does euphoric coping. She's got the adrenaline going, the novelty, the high from the experiences of outrunning the feeling of being stuck. But the second hit, when the fake Monica gets arrested, Monica's sad about, well, who's going to take me to the circus? And the thief looks at her and says, I got bigger problems than who's going to take you to the circus. I've got a toilet to share with people. I've got this, I've got that. Like, get your priorities straight. So with Monica, the coaching moments that I would address is to name the real loss. You're not just mad about the card being stolen. You're grieving the version of you that felt possible for a few minutes. And instead of looking back at the borrowed version of yourself, what pieces of that do you want to hold on to? Let's work that into your current lifestyle. What excited you? Was it the random crashing of the parties? Was it the auditioning for Cats on Broadway? Or was it the fact that you were bold enough to actually go out there and just try something different? And help build a Monica-sized bridge. You don't have to become the fake version of yourself. But you can practice one small act of boldness a week without burning your whole life down. And she does do that. We see at the end of the episode where she shows up for another tap class and the instructor says in or out, and she says, I'm in. And even though she's doing it wrong, she's doing it. And she owns that. And that's huge. But repairing the shame loop, wanting more doesn't mean that you're ungrateful. It means that you're alive. So when you get that taste of who you can be and it feels like a better version of you, don't let that die. Find ways to keep that part of you alive and integrate those ideas that you are idolizing into your scope. Sometimes grief isn't about who died. Sometimes it's about who you were finally brave enough to meet and then maybe lose again. And that's what Monica's experiencing. Now with Ross, he's experiencing anticipatory grief, knowing that he's got to say goodbye to Marcel. And keep in mind, he got Marcel because of the divorce. He got Marcel because he knows he's about to be a dad and needs to know what it's like to take care of something smaller that's dependent on him. I know a monkey and a baby might not be exactly the same, but a lot of the responsibilities are. He's got to make sure that Marcel doesn't run amok in the apartment when he's at work and poop everywhere or tear the curtains down or whatever. So he's got friends looking in on the monkey. He's taking the monkey to the emergency room when Scrabble chips are swallowed. He's learning how to care for something other than himself. And now he's feeling like a parent of a teenager. He's looking at zoos like they're colleges. And he's got backup zoos. He's got the ones that they really want to go into, just like with college, right? So they do this structure on purpose so that it's relatable and it's familiar. Even if nobody's had a monkey, we know what it looks like when you're looking at schools, or like I did the same thing when my kids were looking at scout troops. You go to these events just like college days at the high school, and you've got different Boy Scout troops to talk to find out what they do different than the other ones. Just like, why is your college better than this one? Is it the location? Is it the curriculum? Is it what you bring to the table? Like better professors? What's it look like? So he's trying to find the right next home for Marcel. And he's trying to go through this without hesitation, because it's real easy to avoid when a big thing enters the room. Like it's easy to put those blinders on and not want to acknowledge it. But Ross does embrace it and start immediately interviewing and looking at applications and what's my best choices, what's going to keep him safe, and what's going to help my heart feel okay about knowing that he's not going to be mine anymore. But he does do a little bit of panicking and a little bit of fixing, or trying to. He's delaying some of his emotional processing. Feelings are showing up at the airport when he goes to say goodbye that he was in denial for. But he does acknowledge those feelings. He does acknowledge his sadness and the separation and the time to move on. He knows it's necessary, but he still resents the reality. Some of the coaching moments is, I would tell Ross that you're allowed to be devastated even when you know it's the right decision. And the separation doesn't mean that you failed. It just means it's the end of a season. And a goodbye, it marks meaning, not just logistics, but knowing where he is doesn't mean you can't still go and see him. San Diego is pretty far from New York, but there are ways to work through some stuff. Meanwhile, we've got Joey struggling with stage names, and Chandler tries to help and throws out names that Joey doesn't recognize as historical, like Joseph Stalin. And the reason Joey is struggling is because he thinks Tribbiani sounds too ethnic, and that's why he's not getting enough auditions. So he wants to mask who he truly is to people please by changing his name to reduce rejection risk. And even though it's humor in the episode, it does play off the self-worth that we often struggle with. How often do we change a hairstyle or our wardrobe to try and better match the people that we surround ourselves with? If we have a professional job, we don't go in and cut off jeans and t-shirts if everybody else is in suits. If we're in a club in school, whether it's elementary, high school, or college, we don't go in with funky colored hair and mohawks if everybody else is dressed in cheerleader uniforms. You dress to match, and that's what Joey's trying to do. He's trying to blend better. But how much is he doing to make himself less than? And what's the possibility of him ending up overlooked because of the changes that he's trying to do? The coaching opportunities or moments with Joey is, if you have to erase yourself to be chosen, the cost is too high. I would look to redefine what professional means without self-rejection. It's identifying your strengths. It's reviewing your resume, because we know further into the series, Joey has exaggerated some things, like being able to do dance or sing or play guitar. And let's not focus on the what you can't do's that try and enhance that resume to not get overlooked for the initial audition. Let's polish where you are, and let's help you be the shining star that you want to be. So these are some things that I wanted to just kind of tackle in this week's episode. And I also want to address, like, what resonates with you. I would love to see your comments. So there have been so many times throughout my life that I have felt like less or wanted to be more than. And along the way, you do some self-discovery, and certain things become a part of who you're going to be, and certain things you learn to let go of. So that's the one with the fake Monica. And honestly, it's one of those episodes that looks silly on the surface, but it's carrying real grief underneath. Because Monica isn't just mad about a stolen credit card. She's grieving a version of herself that she didn't know she was allowed to be. Ross isn't doing that thing we all do sometimes, trying to problem solve his way out of pain. He's also facing the reality that loving something doesn't mean you get to keep it forever. And for anybody that's ever lost anything, once you lose it, you realize how temporary everything in life is. And sometimes that's just an extra layer of grief too. When we're younger and it's just breakups or friendships ending or breaking a toy, it doesn't impact us as much. But when people start permanently leaving, that weighs. And that's something that scars us and we carry. And Ross has already lost so much in this year, between losing not only his wife, but losing the opportunity to be a full-time live-in father, to having to replace all of his furniture, to getting a monkey, to losing the monkey, to struggling with dating and not being real successful with the attempts. Like, this poor guy keeps hitting restart and he's getting knocked around a lot. I don't know about you, but the last 8 years or so of my life, I felt like I was in a washing machine just like Ross, and it's not a fun ride sometimes. And Joey's bumping into the quieter grief of belonging, where you start editing yourself because you think you have to. If any of that hits you in the chest, I just want to say this: you're not dramatic, and you're not broken, and you're not behind. Sometimes grief is loud. Sometimes it's a whisper. And sometimes it's the loss of a person. And sometimes it's the loss of the life you thought you'd have, or the version of you that felt possible for 5 whole minutes. Now, about what I do with the naked grief. If you're here now, I'm Karen, and this is the Naked Grief and my Disenfranchised podcast. But the Naked Grief is a space for real grief support without clinical jargon, forced positivity, or the whole move on nonsense. We talk about death loss, yeah, but also the losses that people don't always validate: identity shifts, relationships ending, estrangement, job loss, pet loss, the before version of you, and all the secondary grief that stacks up. And it's important to understand that as a grief coach, there's a difference. There's a huge difference between grief and bereavement. So, bereavement and mourning are when you lose a person or a living thing to death. Grief is everything else. And the grief is what we discuss in every Friends episode, because they have all kinds of different levels of just grief. Yes, there are some episodes where somebody does actually die, but few and far between. But every episode has some kind of grief-related thing that is important to bring to the surface, because it's part of our everyday life that we experience. Now, I just wanted to also tell you a little bit more about me and the Naked Grief. I've got more books coming out at the end of February. I have a 13-month workbook that gets you through initial loss called The Raw Emergence. It's 13 calendar months that start at the time that you open up the book. So you fill it out, but it's several books in one. It's got some mini chapters in there about just realignment that also can be a companion to my support communities, which I'll mention briefly in a minute. But it also has pre-planning pages for yourself. It's got unfinished business guides for anything that you need to take care of for a loved one that may have just passed. Plus, it's got some powerful coaching tips throughout each month. Journal reflections, affirmations for the weeks, priority goals, journaling prompts, breathing exercises, and a whole lot more. It's for anybody who doesn't know what they need coaching wise or therapy wise to get as a way to empower yourself while you're figuring out what you need next. And if you choose to do the book and then get into my community, you're just one step ahead in really knowing what you need. You can find all of my books on Amazon under Karen Bulinski Mathison and The Naked Grief. But my support communities, I've got 3 different support communities, and then I've got a emotional trauma-based program that is currently 7 weeks long. It'll actually end up being 8 to 12 weeks once I'm finished. But it addresses EFT tapping and CBT therapies and some different psychotherapy, evidence-based procedural exercises that helps align you in those most traumatic times. If you're somebody who has a lot of sensitive dates that all hit at once, like birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, and things all in a couple of week period, or everything hitting on like one particular day, that can be extremely overwhelming. And learning how to channel that, reposition it, and empower yourself through it is huge progress. And I can help with that without you having to spend a lot, and to be able to do it on your own time frame, and to go back and revisit these exercises as often as you need. So if you're looking for support that isn't a one and done video, I do have community spaces where you can be around people who get it. No pressure, no fixing, no pretending that you're fine. If you want to check those out, look for the links here on this channel. But there's also a little bit more. So it's not just about the initial connection. It's about showing up and doing the work. It's about discovering where you are in your journey, knowing that you're not alone, and that you can keep switching it up. Every 3 weeks, there is an assessment that you can take, and those assessments will let you know if you should maybe look at hopping over to a different content level. If you're good where you are, maybe I'll even tell you to take a break and focus on some self-development before coming back. It's not a one size fits all. So for those of you that have been following my real life chaos, my heat is still out. We're going on almost a month, but it should be back later this week, and I'm okay. It's definitely cold right now. It is 50 degrees in my house, but and we're expected to get like 6 inches of snow in Delaware in a couple of days. But I'm learning to move with it. I'm not trying to sound like a little violin, but I am just trying to keep you in the loop. It just shows you that even when you're trying to not be messy, messy happens. So if this episode helped you feel a little more seen, you're welcome to subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who's carrying a quiet kind of grief. Take what you need, leave the rest. I'll see you in the next episode of Disenfranchised. Da 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 da.